Hey everyone, I'm Tammy Davis and I really appreciate you joining me today. I wanted to talk a little bit today about spirituality. So right now you get a fresh face. I just came in from outside. I was going to actually do the video outside, but there was just a slight breeze and quite a few people. And not that I mind people, it's just there was some activity that just I wasn't really wanting to invite into something like this. And again, with the breeze, I just didn't want to take the chance of noise in the background or kind of covering things up. So at any rate, here I am, fresh-faced, in from outdoors, and thought I'd talk, like I said, a little bit about spirituality and really what that means when, even why I'm wanting to talk about it. When I say what that means, I don't necessarily mean you don't know what it means. I'm talking in reference to my approach and my protocols, the things that I recommend, and so forth. And you might have picked up on it. If you've watched any of my videos before, you may have picked up a bit of that in there, but I really wanted to speak more directly to that today, primarily because I was recently invited to talk later this month, participate in a live talk later this month with regards to spirituality and recovery. And addiction and mental health is it's a really big deal to me. I just want to say that. First and foremost, because our mental health, the brain chemistry affects our entire physical health. So I think, but in part, my heart is really connected to that area because of the stigma around that arena. Mental health issues are looked at differently than physical health, and while some professionals may disagree with me, I've heard too many times people that are facing addiction and contemplating recovery, and in that process often fear being welcomed into God's kingdom because of their decisions and behaviors. I've heard the same thing come from people who are suffering from mental health issues, especially the more severe it gets. I currently know someone who is being treated for psychotic disorder, a psychotic disorder. There's no particular name that's been attached to it, yet she has hallucinations, but it's not auditory, it's visual, and she actually sees people laying on the floor, writhing around on the floor, people who are very, very sick and need of help, and no one's giving them any help, and yet in her mind, she's actually able to assist these folks. So, yet when she's lucid, her statement is, because she's a very religious woman, she's just afraid that God's not going to allow her to join him when she finally passes away. So it's stories like that really lead me into this realm of opening up doors, so to speak, for people who are struggling. And again, I don't hear a lot of that, honestly, a lot of talk like that when it comes to things like cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure. We don't even equate that as a failure to get into heaven. So, but when it comes to spirituality and religion are two very different things. And so this is the reason why I actually try to offer it. I don't offer it. It's like I'm offering this as a means of inviting spirituality into whatever it is that you practice and believe in. Spirituality, in my opinion, is an alignment. It's an alignment with your source. And the oils factor heavily into this. the reason for that is because they are provided to us through nature. We are undeniably nature. We as human beings are undeniably nature. DNA is DNA, as I've talked about before. The 4 chemicals that make up a DNA strand are found all throughout nature. It's just the sequencing that is varied that distinguishes the different species. And there again, a human species, the DNA structure looks one way, and a tree, it looks a different way. So, but again, the chemicals are the same. The peptides are the same peptides. It's just a matter of placement and how they're being utilized in that particular organism. So there you have it. We are nature, and we are connected to nature at that very level. This is the reason why I like nature, to include nature into our lives. We are not separate. So when I speak of life, I talk about everything that we see and cannot see. And there are plenty of things that we cannot see that are alive, such as your bacteria and your yeast and your viruses and every other little microbe that's out there, So there's things that we see and don't see, and that's all a part of life. So anyway, so when it coming back to spirituality and how this plays into our health and wellness, again, it's alignment. It's an alignment with your source. And when we open ourselves up to understanding that we are a part of nature and that nature can serve us as we serve nature. I mean, the very simplest example is the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide between plants and animals. And there's communication occurring at all times. And so when you include an essential oil into your daily protocol or your weekly protocol, because not everything has to happen every single day. There was a time where I would say use your oils every day. Now I like to use oils every day, but I don't use the same ones every day. I change mine out because, well, my system changes, and every single day I feel differently. There's something different going on with me, and I don't mean significant, but you know what I'm saying. Maybe I'm a little bit more tired. Maybe I maybe I have some sore muscles. Maybe I overdid it, pardon me, in yoga and stretching, maybe I have some tenderness or muscle tension. Maybe I have a digestive flare-up because, I am human and I have stress. So again, everything changes, and so I do use oils every day. I don't necessarily use the same ones every single day. But that said, you don't have to use yours every day. I did a recent article on the way our cells are overwhelmed, and this really comes down to your herbs, your supplements, your oils, your food additives. Our bodies are overwhelmed. And the fact that so many of us are utilizing some form of medication, and if they're prescriptions, you need to follow your prescription. Other than that, though, everything else can be adjusted accordingly. And there's a whole nother talk along those lines when you are including herbs and oils in with your medication. I will just say it here very briefly that you want to balance. You want to help the body be balanced. You don't want to be doing the very same thing. You don't want to pile more crap into the body when you're already taking medication for a very specific reason. So you want to use caution when you are including natural remedies in with your pharmaceuticals, and even for that matter, your over-the-counter, your OTCs. So back to spirituality and alignment, and this is what actually oils provide. I also did another post just this morning on my Patreon page that has to do with how to use essential oils, and there is absolutely no reason to even swallow them. You do not need to put them in a capsule. You do not need to be taking them in. And I realize there are a number of companies out there that are encouraging that very thing. And I completely disagree. There's a couple of things that this signifies. And yes, this has to do with spirituality. It signifies a lack of trust that the body can actually utilize something when you apply it to the skin or inhale it. The olfactory bulb sits right up in here. Okay, the nose is an extension of your brain. It's the only sense that's a direct extension of your brain. So you inhale an oil, and it's an automatic influence to the brain chemistry. It automatically influences the brain because it gets taken in as an aerosol, and it begins to affect the system. This is a very important component to this because many chemicals can do that. A lipophilic chemical can cross the blood-brain barrier, and essential oils are lipophilic. To put them into your stomach completely changes their chemistry because you are digesting them. And essential oils are already a secondary metabolite. So when we go to take them internally like that, we are basically saying we don't trust the body. That's not alignment. That's being out of alignment. That is a lack of trust and a need to control. This is where spirituality comes in, because in my world and in my practice, spirituality is about flow. Again, it's about alignment, but keep in mind things change, and so it's a flow. It's moving with, not attempting to control. And this is a very different approach than when you compare it to the conventional model for healthcare. And this spans all forms of healthcare, whether you're talking alternative holistic or you're talking allopathic. The conventional model is to control, and while I do understand that there are certain things that do warrant being controlled, I believe that should only be occurring temporarily. And this is the reason for wanting to restore balance to the system. So let's just say, for instance, you are in a treatment facility, you are in recovery from addiction, or you're in a treatment facility for another mental and emotional instability, and you're taking medications. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with taking medications. What I'm saying is, by including essential oils into your life, into your practice, in your treatment, you are allowing you're encouraging your cells to align themselves with the medication. Okay? When we are in alignment, we are better equipped to awaken ourselves to a higher consciousness. Again, whatever religious belief or worldview you would adhere to, that's fine. It simply puts you in tune with something beyond your own thoughts. And to me, this is spirituality. This is actually what awakens you to something much greater than your current circumstances. There was something, I don't even know, I just get these thoughts from here time to time that I may be doing one thing and all of a sudden I get something else popped into my head. And years ago, when I began practicing essential oils, I wasn't even thinking along these lines. I was coming out of, I was still involved with pharmacology and very much ingrained in the medical way. And so by including essential oils, it was a fun, fragrant experience for me. But I did learn how to formulate. And we were doing we were mass producing, my partner and I were mass producing fragrances that were being sold through a number of different companies and local stores. And at the same time, I was beginning to notice the effects. And I began doing this long before the birth of one of the big companies that we have today, which was Young. I've been doing that longer than Young Living's been around. So I've been working with oils for a long time, but back then it was more about, I was just learning about it and getting involved with the fragrancing end of it, because I got into business with a professional nose who decided to leave the perfume industry and the synthetic perfume industry, and decided to start a natural fragrance company. And that's when I came into it. Beyond that, like I said, I began noticing the effects of them, and things began to kind of stir within me. And I started practicing along the lines more conventionally. See a symptom, treat the symptom, and then, get another symptom, treat the next symptom. But I tired of that rather quickly and really wanted to explore what the root cause is, as many of us are looking for. Fast forward a few years, and I got involved with the study of the human genome, and more specifically the methylation pathway, and learned a lot from, again, not practicing according to the way most practitioners are using those tests, those DNA tests that they're providing, and people taking a lot of supplementation. I was introduced to several people that were doing that and quickly stepped away from that because it was already against my belief system to be doing so much. And therefore, I continued to pursue the understanding of the human genome and the further development of pharmaceuticals. While in that process, there was a time that I was sitting there gazing at the sunset and just kind of enjoying the light when I had a thought come to mind that basically said the oils have the ability to breathe new life into our cells, which just basically took my breath away when I heard that. And that was really the foundation for why I do what I do today. And like I said, that was several years ago. That was a number of years ago. And that is the reason why I've continued to evolve my practice and understanding that they actually do breathe life into our cells. This isn't because I'm not suggesting anything other than the fact that they are chemical messengers from nature, and we are nature. And there's a consciousness to nature that science has notably commented on, that, you know, from hundreds of years ago, that they never believed that they could replicate nature, that there was an undeniable recognition throughout nature, this consciousness that was not, they were unable to duplicate. This came from scientists, and these were actually chemists that were making this statement. And although they no longer talk about that, that is still a lot in their records of what they believe. But as you will note, from that moment on, right around the birth of organic chemistry, which occurred in the late 1800s, it was during that time that we did have a handful of scientists looking into consciousness. Francis Crick was one of them. James Watson, the gentleman who discovered the double helix in the DNA. Okay, they also went on to look into consciousness within our DNA. So, and really try to figure out what it was, or what it is. So there is a life force throughout nature. And so when you include essential oils, you are including this life force when they're genuine and authentic. Okay, when they're genuine and authentic essential oils, not therapeutic. Therapeutic is a marketing term. If I've insulted anyone, please accept my apologies. Therapeutic is not a qualifiable. It's not qualifiable. You cannot certify therapeutic. Everything, I've talked about this before, anything that creates a physiological effect can be rendered therapeutic. Therapeutic, even though in our mind is having a healing quality, technically therapeutic means having a physiological effect. And therefore, any lipophilic chemical, or for that matter, even a hydrophilic, depending on what you're talking about, what it's actually going to do in the body, can actually have a therapeutic effect. Therefore, genuine and authentic essential oils is really the classification that you're looking for. Again, you don't have to use them every single day, but you are including a life force. With that said, I have been asked a couple of times whether or not there was a cumulative effect with the use of essential oils, and I wouldn't say there's a cumulative effect. What I will say is that they are in fact chemical messengers, just like your own hormones are. And again, a lot of lipophilic chemicals act as signaling molecules within the body. And so when that occurs, there's an activation, there's a modification, there is an inactivation, depending on what it's telling the body. So therefore, unless something changes that activation, there isn't any use to use the same thing every single day because you've already created a change. Now, if you're living with a chronic health condition, if you are in recovery from addiction, or you're using a medication for any other health reason, including mental health, then you are already taking something that is affecting the inhibition or the activation of cell receptors. You're already doing it. So to include something on a regular basis that actually helps to modulate and keep that system balanced, now we're talking about something different. See, I myself don't take any medication. So changing my oils on a regular basis, on a daily basis, is okay. But for those who are living on medications, it would be advisable to use something on a regular basis, because what you're doing, like I said, is actually helping the body remain stabilized, because those medications are targeted to affect very specific genetic receptors as well as liver enzymes. And what that means is it affects the way the body is breaking them down and eliminating them. So knowing how all of that works and using oils on a regular basis in that case is a good idea. But nonetheless, there is not necessarily a cumulative effect. There is a modulating effect that will remain in place until something environmental happens or something occurs in your lifestyle or stress. And that's probably the image that that YouTube's going to pick up when I post this. We'll see. Anyway, but if you undergo any degree of stress, mental and emotional, you could actually be altering your the way the genes are signaling, and therefore have to go back to using that oil again. So again, your body is going to be the leader. Keep in mind, there is a life force, and this life force is what, to me, when we can tap into that life force, we tap into our higher selves. And again, whatever you believe, whatever your practice is fine. This isn't about a religion. This is about being able to access something outside your current circumstances. And so when we include things that enable the life force within us, then we are in alignment with our higher source. And to me, this is the spirituality that essential oils bring in. This is the reason why you don't need to be ingesting them. Why simple application on the skin, inhalation, like I mentioned a little while ago, and if internal use is warranted under certain situations, then you can either take a bath in them or make suppositories out of them. And again, I wrote about this on my Patreon page, and that's available to the public. So you're welcome to take a look at that and comment and let me know what other questions that you may have about that. But as far as ingesting them and taking them in through the mouth, there isn't any reason to do that. Again, impurities are definitely a concern if you're not using genuine and authentic. But there again, when you do take them internally, it's almost like you're sending a message to the body that you don't trust it to use it and the way that your God intended, or the way nature has intended. And keep in mind, intention doesn't necessarily mean thought process. Intention is, again, a form of it's a life force. It's the way nature moves. It's the way nature communicates. Okay? That's intention. Nature communicates through intention. And otherwise known as interaction. And so a chemical getting into your skin's porous, so it will connect with cells. It will, you've got capillaries right there. It will get into the bloodstream and it will circulate, and it will have a full systemic effect. The rate of absorption, again, is something that it depends on your medium, on your carrier. So, but nonetheless, it doesn't make any difference. You put it on the skin, no matter your carrier. Sometimes they absorb faster than other times, depending again on your carrier. But your carrier doesn't block the body's absorption of it. Smelling it certainly doesn't inhibit the absorption. It actually enhances the brain, signaling, telling the body what it needs to do. And this is another reason why knowing what you're already doing to your body, meaning medication, supplement, and everything else, you want to use, I don't want to use the word caution. You just want to be mindful about your oil selection, because not every oil is good for everyone. Your system is already, your body's already letting you know that it's needing attention on some level. And just because a book or a website tells you what an oil is good for and what it's been found to be useful, as far as its properties are concerned, doesn't necessarily mean it's good for you, because there are long-term effects. And that's the part that I pay attention to. And so if those matter to you and you would like to know more, then by all means, join me on Patreon, because I am currently putting information together, one oil at a time, explaining, yes, the general properties that we are aware of, and then adding into it the conflicts, the potential conflicts it would have with your medications, as well as long-term effects with continual use. This is another reason why you don't want to be using the same oil every single day unless you're taking medication. And then you want to know specifically how to balance the system so that it doesn't conflict with your medication. So anyway, I've said a lot, but as far as spirituality is concerned and essential oils and intentional eating, it's all about alignment. It's about getting the messages to the cells so that you can create an opening and really connect with your God, your source, and reach beyond your current circumstances and know that you have done nothing wrong, that whatever you're facing right now, it's not a failure. Your body is not failing you. It's simply signaling to you that it's vulnerable. And vulnerable, guys, is not a weakness. It's not a failure. It's an opportunity to tune in. And that takes mindfulness. So that's really what this is about. It's not about you or anybody that you know is failing or weak. It's simply about a vulnerability that's asking for you to tap in and listen so that you can create. It's an opportunity for you to connect and create something more for yourself. So I hope this makes sense. Thank you so much for watching. Blessings to you. Join me on Patreon. I really want to help you understand how to use the essential oils in a way that really expands your life. Anyway, again, thanks for joining me and have a really great day. Bye.